I'm Adam Palmatar. If you watch my series about every presidential election in American history, then you know that the United States has had some insane and crazy elections in its history. But what about the election of 1860? That was basically two elections in one. John Breckinridge versus John Bell in the North, and Abraham Lincoln versus Stephen Douglas in the South. Four candidates all had a chance to win. It had the highest voter turnout in American history up to that point. And to this day, only one other election, the election of 1876, has had a higher turnout than that. The guy who ended up winning the election, Abraham Lincoln, got less than 40% of the popular vote and wasn't even on the ballot in 10 southern states. That's the only election to result into a civil war, for goodness sakes. And in this video, let's say that the U.S. Senator from Illinois, Stephen Douglas, won the 1860 election. Now, I'm a big fan of ranked choice voting. You don't know what ranked choice voting is? I have a short video about ranked choice voting, which you can check out. But let's say ranked choice voting did exist way back in 1860. With ranked choice voting, I think Breckinridge probably would have won. He was probably like the second most choice to most Breckinridge-owned Bell supporters. Thanks to the newly implemented ranked choice voting, Stephen Douglas won the election, becoming the 16th president. Senators were generally not happy, but at least that Lincoln dude didn't get elected, and those states seceded from the Union. But hardly anyone was happy. Douglas was a compromise candidate after all. Although it wasn't impressive that he was the only candidate to win an electoral vote from both free and slave states. In his first few months in office, he called for continuing the tariff and lowered the draft. He passed the Homestead Act. However, beginning in May, Douglas became sick with typhoid fever and never recovered. He died on June 3rd, 1861. On his deathbed, at least he had kept the country at a war. He was only 48 years old. Vice President Horatio Johnson was sworn to take his place, becoming the 17th president of the United States. After Congress passed the Homestead Act, Johnson vetoed it. When Kansas became a state as a free state, Johnson set federal troops to tame the chaos. Congress had a hard time passing any bill. By 1864, the Democratic Party was too upset how overmodeled Horatio Johnson was, and they voted to nominate John Breckinridge for president, who was very popular in the South, having almost a cult-like following. Meanwhile, the Republican Party were also divided. When they were quote violated, not because they literally e-fight, but because they refused to compromise in the point where they wanted to secede and start their own country. They wanted Sandy Chase as their candidate. The model, which again wanted Abraham Lincoln, who by now was the U.S. Senator from Illinois. Ultimately, the Republican Party went with Lincoln, but only because many radicals were swayed to support him because he changed his mind about slavery. Yep, now Lincoln wanted an executional amendment to abolish slavery. There was no third party or fourth party. The election of 1864 was just a rematch of two seemingly opposite candidates, and here are the results. Abraham Lincoln won, getting 194 electoral votes, and Breckinridge getting 111. Breckinridge won all southern states, and Lincoln won all northern states. This would make 11 southern states secede from the Union, and Lincoln would find himself in what would become the Civil War. Stephen Douglas winning this to the Lincoln only get the can further down the road.